Maybe this is news to you, but art is violent, man. It's selfish. I mean, I thought you knew that. And who doesn't love kittens? I mean, is there a situation where kittens aren't cool? Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'm going to break down the Netflix series Brand New Cherry Flavor and explain the ending. That, of course, will include spoilers if you haven't watched the series yet. And now that I've warned you, let's get started. On the surface, Brand New Cherry Flavor is a revenge story about a young filmmaker coming to LA to chase her dream. The protagonist, Lisa Nova, played by Rosa Salazar in an excellent performance, lays this out for you when she's asked what the feature version of her short film would look like. This woman, she's got this thing, but she doesn't know how to use it yet. The producer, Lou Burke, who I'll introduce in a second, questions if it's like a superpower. And she responds, yeah, but other people want to take it from her. They want to suck her dry and don't care if they kill her in the process. So this woman, she has to learn how to use this thing against them if she wants to make it out alive. She's talking about the character in her short film Lucy's Eye, but she's also describing herself. She's driven to get this movie made, to see this thing realized, but can't even describe it really. It's this thing coming from inside of her that she feels compelled to make real. And upon arriving in 90s LA for a meeting with a legit Oscar winner, it looks like her dream might come true. I suppose things turning into a nightmare feels a lot more likely by the time you see she's being followed by a mysterious rider on a motorcycle on her way into the city. But even her old friend Code, who she calls for a place to crash, says her planned meeting sounds like a huge opportunity, so you can't blame her for having high hopes. Things start off okay. Lisa is somewhat out of her depth when she meets with Lou, but it seems like her short film might just be good enough that it doesn't matter. Why it's good isn't revealed, or even how it ended up on an assistant's desk in the first place, where Lou said he heard a voice in his head telling him to pick it up. But at the end of their initial meeting, he decides to option her short and gives her a check for $10,000 as a deposit. In the beginning, it starts off as a mentorship. And to be fair, I think the character is written in a way that he does see himself as a mentor. The problem is the best part of Lou's career has already passed him by. And he's old school in a sense, in that he knows how to continue to use the power he's accumulated to his advantage in the business. He's sort of the opposite of her in that the great ideas that he had and he was trying to get out and make into a reality, those are gone. And now he needs to capitalize on someone else's. He tells her that he needs her in one of his most honest moments because he hadn't had a real hit in almost a decade. And he's so afraid of becoming irrelevant that he goes straight to choking Lisa out before she can even finish getting the words washed up out of her mouth when they have an argument. They got there after things started to go wrong when he put his hand on her thigh and then continued to make sexual advances after she made it clear she wasn't interested. To punish her for making him feel small, he replaced her with a different director and she essentially loses her movie. When confronted, he says the world we live in is predators and prey and each and every one of us is both. And then he tries to justify what he's doing by saying that art is selfish. From there, she realizes there's nothing that she can do about it, and so she goes looking for the mysterious woman Boro she met that offered the service of being able to hurt someone for her if necessary. For all intents and purposes, Boro is a witch that can cast spells for a price. By the time Lisa gets there, she's willing to pay anything, and even though this is a recipe for disaster you can see coming from a mile away, it was still pretty freaky when she had to produce her first payment by puking up a newborn kitten. From there, she goes through a series of spells that predictably cost her more than what she gains. Especially at the beginning, it's going much worse for her than it is for Lou. And that is the setup. She's lost the only thing she cares about. She wants revenge against the mentor turned predator, and that drives her to Boro, who you'll learn later is also a parasite. Eventually, the curse starts to kick in and things start to fall apart for Lou. But there is a twist along the way that's important for the ending. After Lou loses his son, who winds up as one of Boro's zombie minions, who she keeps around and animated with a tadpole smoothie concoction, he finds out where the witch lives through the incompetent henchman he poached from Lisa. When he goes to see her, instead of trying to protect Lisa, she seems happy to help him. There were plenty of red flags before this, but it becomes clear that she wants something more from Lisa than just her kittens. She tells him that she isn't sure what, but that something happened when they were making the movie and that he should go look into it. He makes his way to the house in the woods where she made the film, and he meets the actress who played Lucy, who's actually missing her eye and is pretty pissed off at Lisa. It turns out that they were lovers and that she actually financed the short. And in an effort to deliver an amazing performance, she decided to take some peyote, and that led to the creation of this amazing last scene that everyone had been hinting at, but we hadn't really seen yet. It turns out that she gouged her own eye out and then ate it on camera. So while everyone thought that Lisa was this fantastic filmmaker, it wasn't special effects or some kind of directorial wizardry that they were watching. Although it does sound like there was some raw talent on display in front of and behind the camera. What really made it such a memorable piece was this incredible sacrifice that Mary made on screen. She couldn't remember what happened and she never saw the film, so before Lou left, he offered to screen it for her and gave her his number. Finding out that Lisa's exploiting this to get a feature made means that Mary has a huge resentment against her and heads to LA to see what happened to her eye. As you get to the end, you learn that Boro is hundreds of years old and she did something in the past a long time ago that she can't take back. After finding out that the body she currently occupies was once a pretty normal woman named Jennifer who had a husband and kids, you learn that the entity's longevity is accomplished by jumping from one body to another. It all started in Brazil about 900 years ago, which is interesting because that's also where Lisa spent her childhood. Boro started out as a man, and one day he encountered a huge, stunning white jaguar in the forest. She described it as like the mother jaguar, a spirit living in an animal body. The jaguar likes the man and they hook up, and she leaves him with some of her power as a reward. He uses that to become a king and he marries this great princess, and he just has to give the jaguar an offering of a sacrifice every so often. Then his kingdom comes under threat and he needs the jaguar again. She tells him to go looking for the poisoned toad. When she licks it, she's able to see where her enemies are and set a trap. But this time the jaguar wants a big sacrifice in return. She tells the king to bring her his wife. In an attempt to trick the jaguar, he brings a different woman and that doesn't work out. Knowing she's been betrayed, the jaguar comes and eats his wife anyways, and then mauls the male Boro, leaving him for dead. A young girl finds him as he's dying alone in the forest, and without even knowing that he could, he uses the last of his strength to jump into her body. He's been doing that ever since. As far as Boro knows, the jaguar was killed by the Spanish and then turned into a couch. As soon as Lisa hears that, she realizes it's the one that she saw at the bottom of the ladder under the trap door that appeared in her room. Boro says the jaguar still lives, but is just on the other side, and we'll come back to that. By the time you make it to the finale, Lisa has been through a lot. She's produced quite a few kittens, including one that she birthed out of a new orifice that appeared on her side after she said she didn't want to puke them out anymore. She went to jail after eating psychedelic guinea pig stew. She was choked to death only to be brought back, which was an extra brutal scene because it was cut with Mary watching the film where you finally see the scene with her eye for the first time. And on top of that, all of her friends, Code, his girlfriend Christine, and her movie star sort of boyfriend Roy Hardaway all end up dead. She does succeed in ruining Lou's life though. After she got him to snort a worm that she found on a flower from the vine that was taking over her entire apartment building, it grew inside his head, it damaged both of his optic nerves, and he was left blind after she removed it. Before that, she had gone to his hotel intending to kill him, but after he admitted the fact that he took the movie away because she made him feel small when she moved his hand off her thigh, she realized that it wasn't really worth it to kill him. While she was dealing with all that, she was constantly getting stronger, and you started to put it together that what Boro really wanted was her body. And that the whole backstory of Lisa's mom leaving when she was a baby, well, that's not really what happened. After Lisa licked the toad, Boro told her that she'd die in about 6 hours if she didn't do rituals and sex and blood magic. She does the first with Roy, but can't go through with the second because it involves eating an omelet with some of Code's flesh inside. She refuses, saying that she feels like she traded his life for her movie, and while she walks away, the creepy-looking shadow entity that's been popping up comes right up and touches her. The implication here is that it's protecting her and removing the poison, and when it's done, it attacks Boro, leaving her injured and unconscious on the couch. The uncle comes in to try to finish the job of killing Lisa, and she has to use the trap door to try to get away from him. There, she sees the couch again, recognizes it's the jaguar, and tells it that she betrayed you, talking about Boro, and says you've been looking for her all this time. Then, the faceless woman from her dreams appears, and she makes the connection that part of what's inside of her comes from the jaguar. They talk and she realizes it's her mother. And when she asks to see her face, you realize it's that entity that she's seeing. Even though she doesn't need to hear it, her mother tells her that Boro will betray her. She explains the kittens. She says that Boro's using those to steal her blood from Lisa's body. Without that, she's weak, and for Lisa to go do what she needs to do and then come find her. So in the end, she does get her revenge. She gets the movie back, she meets with Alvin Sender. He says that he'll draw up a new contract and she's guaranteed to direct. After everything she's been through and her talk with the jaguar, she's able to stop Boro from jumping into her body. She knows better than to make a deal with her, and is even able to stop her bringing forth another kitten. And so Boro has to settle for jumping into Mary's body, which we see her do. Instead of sticking around in LA and making the movie, Lisa Nova buys herself a ticket to Brazil, where we can expect that she's going to try to find her mother. I found the show to be an interesting ride. It really was dreamlike in that it felt like anything could happen, and that was established pretty early on. It feels different from other shows I've seen on Netflix lately, and that's always a good thing. I prefer to see a show that tries to do its own thing, even if it doesn't always work out. Brand New Cherry Flavor isn't perfect, and it did feel a little longer than it needed to be in places, but overall I thought the unpredictability kept me engaged even when the story was pretty straightforward. I like the there's a thing inside of you that you need to get out and make real, the creative process and how difficult that can be, and how things are set up to keep certain avenues inaccessible by design. At first, the twist with Mary felt like it took away from that a bit, but when you hear Lisa say later on that she didn't remember what happened either, and that she waited for 2 days before she left, the whole predator and prey angle as it applies to her sort of breaks down. Especially if the implication is that Boro did something to call her to LA after she sensed her. I mean, there is some truth to everyone being both predator and prey, but they didn't really go out of their way to drive that idea home. To me, it felt more like a nightmare process of trying to create something in a parasitic situation. Most of the performances were good, but Salazar really carried the whole thing. She's a great fit for the part, and it might not have been as watchable if she wasn't the lead. I think that's a good place for me to leave it. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions and what you thought of the series. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.